Hi everybody, I'm Vince Reed, and of course this is the Galen Snyder Show, being brought to you in part by Aria Health, your neighbors in Lower Bucks County, and by Peruzzi, Buick GMC on Business Route 1 in Langhorne. Well, of course, the Pennsbury Falcons had their opening game of the season, and that was located up in Easton, and in Easton, a very good ball club in the top 10 of the state of Pennsylvania. And of course, they showed the reason why, coming out with a strong ball club with a lot of experience, and wound up winning that ball game over Pennsbury in the opener of the season for the Falcons. We're going to talk to Galen about that ball game first and see exactly what came out of that game as far as he's concerned, positives and negatives, and what, of course, they'd have to work on for the remaining of the season, of course, especially their next ball game coming up here against Frankfurt. Galen, looking at that opening ball game, what do you think you really got out of that opener against that Easton ball club?
Well, I think you know, it's always good to play somebody, you know, a really quality team the first week of the season, if you want to be able to gauge where you are. You know, we faced a good football team. They were clicking on all cylinders. I thought they played very well defensively. I thought their offensive line did a real good job. They had two very good running backs, and you know, they played. They certainly you know, took it to us. And, you know, we you know, I don't think we played at our best. And I just that's just what happened.
Looking at the ball game of the first one of the year, of course, and you've got to find out exactly what's coming out of this ball game that you can look at and what you can build on for this Pennsbury ball club. What did you see coming out of that game that you feel that you can take away positives in that ball game that you can build from there?
Well, you always have to look at your first game of the season and win or lose, try to make adjustments for that second week. A lot of times that's when you know, in the past that we've made a lot of moves that benefited us down the line. So you got to look at what happened and you know, make some adjustments, and you know, that's what we plan on doing. And we'll get better. And you know, they're a tough team to start out with, but again, you know, sometimes if you don't start out with somebody like that, you know, sometimes some weaknesses that you may have, you know, may not come to the surface. So, it's no benefit having a team put it to you there the first week.
When you take a look at that offensive line that they had, and of course they had almost everybody back in that offensive line, and your defensive set as far as that goes, your line against them, what do you think you have to build on from there?
Well, I think the D-line's okay. I mean, we got, sometimes they have a really good tight end who you know, was able to handle our defensive ends. Other than that, the rest of our line did not do poorly against them. They just did. You know, I thought we had some issues with some of our support. You know, setting the edge on some of the wide plays where our defensive player we need to have guys setting the edge a little tighter, guys filling the alleys a little bit better, and again, going back to sometimes our guys, our contained player, you know, got hooked where he should have struggled to play out a lot better. So they're all things you can work on, no doubt. But you know, when you're a little sloppy like we were, and then they have some guys who can take it the distance, which they did, you know, they can make it look bad.
Well, when you talk about making it look bad a little bit, Shane Simpson, of course, having a big day for him, but I think one of the things, of course, that helped him out too was the fact that maybe the tackling wasn't as good in the first ball game as you had hoped.
Yeah, I mean, there were some missed tackles as the game went on, but I don't think that was too severe a problem. I thought it was more guys not being able to get on some blocks and things of that nature as well.
Looking at this first ball game, what do you take out of it as far as it goes for you, your defense? Giving up some scores to them in this ball game, but what do you feel, and what are the areas where now maybe you looked at it and said maybe we have to get a little stronger in certain areas on defense?
Well, I think we'll be okay with Dave. I mean, I think that we have some people who did not play at the top level, and I think, you know, once they watch the film, or having watched the film, you know, I expect to see better of them. They played better in scrimmages. They just, for whatever reason, some of them who were really good defensive players just did not play up to their abilities in this game.
When you take a look at your offense, and of course you weren't able to move the ball that much against this ball club. You had one big play. Of course, that was a touchdown that was by Sean Pepper on a nice run, a nifty run by him to go 64 yards and get a score. And of course, you also had a good defensive play by Anthony Bolero, taking an interception all the way back for another touchdown for you. But, you know, certainly you got to be helped out if you have an opportunity to get Daquan Mack back into that lineup.
Well, yeah, and you know, Daquan, he's not going to run the ball this week either. We're hoping that he can come out and play a little defense for us. But you know, when guys are out like that, other guys get the opportunity, and they have to make the most of it. You know, and we'll see this week. There's going to be some new faces and some spots, and we'll see how it goes.
What about the backfield as far as that goes? Snorway, of course, is a guy you'd like to spring open, get him a little daylight there. Pepper was able to spring open one time for this ball club. What was the problem there trying to get some consistency from the backfield? Was it a case of where the line wasn't up to par for the ball game, or you just weren't hitting your holes?
No, I just think the entire offensive unit, you know, as I've stated many times, and if anybody's listened to the pre-games over the years, they probably heard me say it, especially early in the season, that the offense takes, you know, one guy's going to carry the ball, but it takes all 10 other guys doing their part, whether that's blocking, carrying out fakes, or selling the play that they have the ball. You know, there's a variety of things that come into play, all of which has to get better.
Well, we know, of course, that you had a new line in there, except for Jack Meehan at the center position for this ball club. Is there any changes that we'll be seeing here coming up in the Frankfurt ball game as far as that goes with the line?
You might see a couple guys who, you know, maybe one change on the O-line, but most of the guys will be there. You know, they've done a pretty good job if you look at the two scrimmages, and some of them did a decent job for their first varsity game against Easton, which again, for a kid who's coming out there as maybe a junior or hasn't played before varsity football, you know, it's a step up from anything they've experienced. So, you know, we'll see how it goes this week. You know, in my experience, the guys have, you know, we've always had to make a couple of adjustments, but the guys have always gotten better week 2. You know, we've gotten better as a unit week 2, so you know, that's what we're shooting for.
Where would you like to see, for the most part, the team really improve this week?
I would say, well, defensively, I would say, you know, what I had talked about earlier, which was, you know, a lot of our edge play was not so great. You know, guys got to make sure that they're keying, you know, using their keys, their offensive keys to play, as opposed to just sometimes, you know, what happens is, again, you put guys into this situation where they're in a big stadium for the first time. Easton had a huge crowd. We brought a lot of people, and sometimes, you know, they go back to how they grew up in some instances playing football, which is, you know, if you're a defensive player, you watch where the ball goes and stuff like that instead of doing your keys. And, you know, when that happens, sometimes, as I said earlier, you cannot you know, hit some of the angles that you need to avoid, you know, keep a play from getting out of control, which is what happened.
We're going to be back, of course, going to talk to Galen Snyder again. Want to let you know that we're being brought to you by Aria Health, which is your neighbor here in Lower Bucks County, and by Peruzzi, Buick GMC. They're located on Business Route 1 in Langhorne. As far as that goes, Galen, you had the ball game under your belt with that first game of the year, and as like a lot of coaches will say, it's that second game that makes a big difference, because you make a big change and you seem to get much better with that second ball game. I'm sure you're looking forward to that situation where you seem to go from game 1 to game 2 is a big difference.
Well, yeah, we're going to hope that's the case. I know we're excited to get another game, you know, get out there and play another game, you know, get beat the way we did to sit well with us. And, you know, I told the kids, I said, you know, you put this one behind us. If you look last year, we lost, you know, we lost to Easton as well, 24-0.
Right.
In the district Final Four. You know, you take a look at a program like North Penn, who lost their first 2 games of the season pretty handily last year, same kind of way that we lost the other night, and they state finals. So when you play good people, you know, sometimes this happens to you, especially early in the season. But that doesn't mean that, you know, you face the same.
Tom from Mooresville says that Aria Health's emergency department saved his life. Recently, while playing golf, Tom experienced cardiac arrest and the ambulance took him to Aria Health Bucks County campus, where Dr. Emmerich and his team of doctors and nurses took fast action and literally brought Tom back to life. Dr. Emmerich visited Tom frequently, answered all his questions, even gave him his phone number. Led by Dr. Harry Emmerich, the emergency department at Aria Health Bucks County provides 24/7 care in a leading-edge environment. To learn more about Tom's story at Aria Health Bucks County, visit ariahealth.org/Tom. That's ariahealth.org/Tom.
Hi, this is Larry at Peruzzi Buick GMC. You'll hit a home run every weekend at Peruzzi Buick GMC Service Department. Every Saturday and Sunday, Peruzzi Buick GMC is offering a standard oil and filter change for just $19.95. And remember, Peruzzi Buick GMC is open every Sunday from 8 to 5. Peruzzi Buick GMC is the home of the $34.95 Pennsylvania State and Emissions Inspection every day of the week. No matter where you purchase your car or truck, you can get it serviced 7 days a week at Peruzzi Buick GMC. And remember, we're open Sundays from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Same people, the people that you played before and that you're back on the schedule with here this weekend, of course, and that's the Pioneers of Frankfort. They're under a new coach. They're under a new offense, a spread offense this time around. Tell us what you've seen so far, maybe of seeing scrimmages of the Frankfort Ball Club and what you expect from them this year compared to the way they were a couple of years ago when you played them.
Well, they're not total spread. They do run some spread. They also run traditional under the, actually they're under center, but they're also in the I formation, which is a little different from what they were. They're more of a wing T set, you know, forever at Frankfort. So they are different. They have a quarterback that throws pretty well. Does a nice job. They have a couple real good running backs. So they're a good club. We watched them play Hatboro. They beat Hatboro. Put a lot of points up on the board. So they're definitely a challenge.
Tim DiGiorgio is a fellow who, of course, set the records in the public league last year. He had the most touchdowns, the most yards through the air lanes. Tell us about what you're expecting from him and from your defense as far as that goes in that secondary this year.
Well, we actually did a pretty good job the other night with pass coverage. At least they really didn't hurt us in the past. They've hurt us with some big plays. They weren't able to do that through the air. They hurt us on the ground this time. So, you know, obviously with Frankfurt, DiGiorgio's a real good quarterback, real good high school quarterback, and he makes some things happen. So, you know, we're going to have to be sound in our coverages, and at the same time, obviously, have to defend.
Damian Samuels had a big game for them the last ball game. They have some nice running backs for this ball club, and of course, you saw a couple of really good backs against you last week at Easton. How are you figuring on handling these two running backs today?
Well, just some of the things I talked about earlier, some of the things that you have to do defensively to play team defense that we didn't do. And, you know, we're planning on the guys executing their positions better this week. We made a couple changes. And, you know, I expect us to do a lot better job stopping the run this week.
When you look at your ball club and you see coming out this week, what are the things that you're looking at as far as your ability to move the football against this Frankfort Ball Club from what you've seen?
Well, I mean, as I said, I think second week we've always done a much better job moving the ball. You know, some things get to, you know, the offensive line, the backs. There's a lot that has to work together, and I think we will. I think we'll definitely do a better job this week moving the ball.
And of course, we're with the Galen Snyder Show, and of course, getting set for the second game of the year, and the first one at home for the Pennsbury Falcons against Frankfort here tonight as we get ready for this ball game. And of course, we're being brought to you by Aria Health, your neighbors in Lower Bucks County, and also by Peruzzi, Buick, and GMC, located on Route 1, Business Route 1 in Langhorne. I'm Vince Reed, along with Galen Snyder. Galen, you took on tough competition. We mentioned that in the non-league portion of your season with the 3 ball games that you have on tap. All teams that have been, when you come down to it, champions in their own right as far as that goes, and coming back with some good athletes, and Frankfort Ball Club is coming back with some good ones as well. And of course, we mentioned about the fact that when you play the good competition, your kids have to certainly learn from that.
Well, no doubt. You know, you see a team like Easton, and you see a team that's really going to be, I would suspect, nothing less than state semis. You know, obviously a lot can happen, but you would think they're one of the favorites to get out of District 11, and then they'll probably play. Well, they will play the winner of District 12, and then winner of that gets District 1 in the state semi. So they have a very good opportunity to do that. They're a great team. They're a very good team. Very good. I can say that they're probably the best all-around Eastern team that we faced in 3 years. They had some pretty good ones.
Well, don't want to jump ahead of myself a little bit here, but I do want to mention a little bit about the Downingtown East. That'll be your next opponent. That gives you an indication, and we mentioned this before, as you mentioned too, about teams that have lost maybe the first 2 ball games and come back and really had a good playoff run. And when you play the competition you're playing, Downingtown East may be a ball club that's even better than Easton when you come down to what they have and their quarterback, as well as their running backs and what they have coming back. But you're taking on 3 really good ball clubs. And what is it that you have to keep in mind with the kids, of the fact that no matter what happens in these 3 ball games, you're looking at the best competition you're going to play all year?
Well, again, I think that we don't really get into that. We just kind of talk about the fact that we got to play better and we got to win the game on Friday night. And then after that, Saturday we're still thinking about the next hurdle. Obviously this is a real big game for us to get that W against Frankfurt, and it's not going to be easy, so it's going to take a great effort on our part.
Frankfurt and you have really battled in the years that we've seen you since you've taken them back and, of course, been on the schedule. You 2 teams seem to be taking it down to the wire when you meet one another.
Well, they're always good games. The former coach, Mike Capriati, he always had those kids ready to, they're always going to hit you and be physical. So that was always the case in these games, and you're right. We had some really good football games against them over the years.
Should be interesting because they do have a good 1-2 punch. They have a solid air game for this Frankfurt ball club, a good ground game as well. They got people back from last year. They were the Philadelphia Public League Golden Division champions last season, and certainly they've got a lot coming back with their experience, and going to really lend to the fact that your ball club has to really make that step forward here in Game 2.
No doubt, no doubt. It's a good challenge. It's going to be a really good football game, and I know we're looking forward to trying to get that first one of the year.
All right, the Galen Snyder Show, of course, each week is brought to you by Aria Health, your neighbors in Lower Bucks County, and also by Peruzzi Buick GMC, located on Business Route 1 in Langhorne. For Galen Snyder, I'm Vince Reed.